afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Carly Cummings, and I work at the Neil H. Host Music Company here in San Diego. And I'm here today to welcome you all and talk a little bit about the Ukulele for All series. And then I'll be running the Q&A at the end of the presentation with Jenny. Speaking of the Q&A, I'm going to encourage you all to use the Q&A function of Zoom at the bottom of your screen by the chat to post any questions you have during the workshop, and then I'll present them to Jenny at the end of the presentation during our Q&A session. We hope you have all received your complimentary booklets for this event. The sample book is a small representation of what the full Ukulele for All books provide. Jenny will be going over the tools and music in the sample book during today's presentation, but there is much more than that in the full books. If you have not requested a packet yet, please feel free to send us an email at email@chost.com, and I'll be putting that in the chat a little bit later with your preferred shipping address, and we'll be sure to send you a sample booklet if you've attended today's event. Chost is also offering a special discount on the Ukulele for All series if you have attended tonight's seminar. The promo code for that will be posted in the chat at the end of the presentation, and you can use that code directly on our website to receive 30% off all of the Ukulele for All teacher and student books. I will also be putting a link to the Ukulele for All shopping page in our chat a little bit later. So when you purchase the full Ukulele for All book, it comes with an individualized code on the inner cover right here. And this is in the full book, not in the sample one that we sent out. And this is a code to access our interactive practice studio, or IPS. This studio is where we keep all the digital assets that come with the book and that give teachers and students multiple ways to internalize the skills that the books teach. IPS gives a way to practice on your own with tracks, send practice videos to teachers, and it even features video lessons that correlate to specific pages of the book, which are also featured in the online studio. Jenny will be utilizing the videos from this IPS system throughout tonight's presentation. So any video you see is going to be accessible through the online features that come with the Ukulele for All book. The Ukulele for All books are a wonderful tool as a teacher or a student. The pedagogy utilized by Jenny and her sister/co-author, Rebecca Bogert, is easy to follow as a new student and sets up the building blocks to play even more music as your skills develop. Anyone from the age of 8 to 88 can begin playing in the very first lesson with room to grow from there. I am so excited to introduce Jenny Peters. Hi, Jenny, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carly. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I came to the ukulele. I teach music in the public schools in the Chicago suburbs. I live in a town called Highland Park. I actually teach in Skokie. It's about 15 miles south of here. It's an inner ring suburb of Chicago. And I currently am teaching orchestra in the public schools. I have taught general music for 10 years before I switched into the orchestra position. About 8 or 9 years ago, my school district had some significant budget cuts, and they were going to completely get rid of the band and orchestra programs in our district and choir, all the performing music programs. And we music teachers really fought to keep our programs, but in order to keep our programs, all of the music teachers who taught band and orchestra also needed to teach general music. And we not only taught one class of students, we taught a class and a half. So I had 45 students at a time in a small classroom. This classroom is now a library, but there wasn't room to do movement. And the students I was teaching, 4th and 5th graders, weren't interested in singing all the time. There wasn't really room to do much with instruments, but there were ukuleles on the wall from the previous teacher. And I thought, wow, they only have 4 strings. They kind of tune like a guitar. I had played a little guitar. I bet I could take a ukulele home for a weekend, go on YouTube. I have a master's degree in piano. I've played the violin for all of my life. I bet I could figure it out. So I went home with my ukulele. I tuned into YouTube. I could pretty much figure out how to make the chord shapes because I had background on that. But as far as knowing when to strum, how much to strum, how to make the songs sound like songs, how to do more than just pick out a melody, I couldn't do that very easily. And there weren't very many resources available. And I knew that any students that I would be teaching would not have the skill to change chords in time. I wanted a kind of program that would teach them the basics, that would teach them a steady beat, that would teach them the difference between beat and rhythm, that would teach them starting with songs that were on one chord only, so that they could get the basics such as strumming, such as a beautiful sound, before we moved into more complicated kinds of things. And so that's when I worked on developing the pedagogy that has come into Ukulele for All. My sister Rebecca and I worked together on it over a summer because she had a background in piano and flute, and she was able to tell me that some of the left-hand stuff was a little confusing, and we were able to troubleshoot that so that we could really approach this instrument from a beginner's mind. And it has a fairly easy learning skill curve that is not as difficult as, say, guitar or, say, violin, but still a way that students could learn. I have even found that year that I was doing all of that work, we had recorder for third and fourth graders, and then we also had ukulele for fourth and fifth. I found that some of my students who had physical disabilities with their fingers, as far as coordination, were more successful on ukulele than they were on recorder. So I really find that it's a beautiful instrument that you can play at all kinds of levels, but it's also an instrument that has a very nice learning curve at the beginning. But anyway, with no further ado, I'm going to show you one of the original tunes that is in the book. It's one I composed. It's called Ukulele Blues. I'm going to put the IPS accompaniment behind me so that you can hear that. And then this song only uses 3 chords. It has a 12-bar blues section in the middle where I'm going to make up an improvised solo. And then I sing out the beginning of the song again. And students can get to this in a relatively short period of time, I would say, depending on the age of the students, anywhere from maybe 8 weeks in to, if you're working with younger students, you might get to this mid-year. But it's not all that difficult, and it sounds really awesome, and they really love it. Here we go. Ukulele Blues.
1, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We've got the ukulele blues. Oh yeah, the ukulele blues. New chords, fingers hurt. We practice and we pay our dues. But we're learning ukulele, a cool skill we can use. We've got the ukulele blues. Oh yeah, the ukulele blues. New chords, fingers hurt. We practice and we pay our dues. But we're learning ukulele, a cool skill we can use. So that's the Ukulele Blues. So let me tell you a little bit about the pedagogy that we have. We're going to start with strumming patterns and with 1-finger chords. And so like our very first chord is going to be the C chord, and it uses only 1 finger. And then we're going to move to the A minor chord that also uses 1 finger. And then we're going to go into 2-finger chords after that. So we start with a very familiar song that kids and people all over the world know. Frere Jacques, Frere Jacques. So we're using 1 chord rounds for the first songs. One of my colleague friends actually was teaching in a neighboring district, and she was teaching Frere Jacques in the key of F. And she had 1 group of students on 1 set of risers and another group of students on another set of risers. They kept a steady beat the whole time through the song. Frere Jacques, Frere sometimes you get but you encourage the students to keep a steady beat. But these students, we had one group on one riser sing and another group on another riser sing, and they also sang it around. And the ukulele served the function of keeping them together, keeping them in pitch with their singing, having a different coordination between their hands playing the beat and their voices doing the melody and the rhythm. So when students do that, they're internalizing a lot of really important musical concepts. So we also use simple down strumming patterns, and then we gradually move into a down up. We move gradually to 2, 3, 4, and 5 chord songs. We're going to give you 3 whole chapters where you just stay on 1 chord songs. And when we move to a 2 chord song, we're going to do 5 songs with that chord progression so that you can develop the muscle memory to really get that chord progression learned. We also have chord labs that are available through the IPS, Interactive Practice Studio. And these are videos that students can practice along with. And I'll show you those later in the presentation. So if you have a ukulele in hand, you can also practice along, or you can use your air ukulele to do that. We're encouraging students to create ensembles as early as possible in their learning process. So my friend who had her groups of students who were singing and playing with the Farajaka and doing the round. I had an opportunity where I was teaching at the Illinois Music Educators Association conference, where I had a group of 5th graders, and they had learned a song with an A minor chord. And we created our own kind of arrangement of it that was original. So they sang the song and strummed it. Then on the second repetition of the song, half the students played the melody tab while the others were strumming. And then on a third repetition of the song, we divided the group in half and sang it as a round. It was so beautiful and so successful that over half the students in that class asked their parents for ukuleles for Christmas because they were having so much fun and learning so much, and it was pretty seamless for them. We use these video lessons, which I'll show you later, and the audio accompaniments to guide the learning. And we encourage students to listen to each other and play with a beautiful and resonant sound from the get-go. And we're going to provide multiple options for melody performance. So you either are going to sing the melodies, or you're going to finger pick the melodies, and we'll get to what that means in a few minutes by reading both tab, and we'll explain what that is, and traditional staff notation. So these are kind of the cool things that we do with this. So at this point, I'd like to talk a little bit about tuning. As you can see, I have a little tuner that is on the end of my headstock. And when a person first gets a ukulele, they may not know how to use it. But if I turn mine on, let's see if I even can. Yeah, there it is. It will turn. Oh, it's not on, but let me make sure it's on. Okay, I need to push the button. But these are very helpful because they tell you the name of the string, and they turn green when you get the pitch correct. And so we encourage people to use tuners, and we show them how to use a tuner or either use a piano in a video that explains how to tune. So we're going to show you how the tuning video works.
Ukulele for all. Tuning number 1. Peg of each string to adjust the pitch up or down. As you turn the peg to tighten the string, the pitch goes up or higher. As you turn the peg to loosen the string, the pitch goes down or lower. When tuning a string, compare its sound to a reference pitch. Then match the string to that pitch by plucking as you turn the peg. Always aim to start slightly below the target pitch, and then gradually tighten the string higher until you hear the desired sound. Be sure to keep plucking the string as you turn. This pluck and turn technique allows you to listen to the pitch change. Be careful to not tighten the strings so much that you damage your ukulele. If you're just beginning, it's
yeah. So thank you for that. A lot of people don't know that they need to pluck the string as they turn the tuner, and I've seen people just turn it and then the whole thing breaks. And so the guidance of the video, those of us who've played string instruments think that tuning is just something people know how to do, but you have to show people because they aren't going to know. If you have your handout with you, you can turn into the part that says, it says at the top of the page, Chapter 1, Getting Started. And on this part, we're going to show you the various parts of the ukulele, the headstock, the names of the strings, the frets, but we're also going to show you how to hold the ukulele. So here's a screenshot that shows you that. When you're holding the ukulele, you want to make sure that you have we have a clock behind, and that's going to show you where you want your ukulele to go. You can see that my headstock as it is at about the level of my shoulder. It's not here, it's not here. And also with the clock numbers behind you, it kind of gives you the idea that you have to hold the ukulele in your left hand and you're going to strum with your right. Now, if you're teaching a whole group of people, like, I was teaching 45 students, there's a significant number that are going to try to do this. And they're going to think, oh my goodness, I have to move my fingers on my left hand. So since I'm right-handed, I should have my right hand do that. They don't realize that on any string instrument, the real artistry comes from what you do with your strumming, your finger picking, your combinations of the two, your chunking, your hand muting, and there's actually a lot more coordination in the right hand. So I encourage a class to have everybody learn it, even a left-handed person, learn it this way, with putting the left hand to do the chords and the right hand to do the strumming or finger picking. I have had two profoundly left-handed students. One was a public school student, and I told her to learn it this way and then I told her if she really found it difficult, we'd switch it for her. And then the other person was an adult biology teacher who was near retirement. And he was like, Paul McCartney plays left-handed, Eric Clapton plays left-handed. I'm going to play it that way. I read online that you can switch the inner two strings and then retune the outer two, and that it can be done, and I'll go and get my own chord charts. I was like, cool, if that's what you want to do, I'll help you do it. It's not a problem. We just sat him on the end because he had kind of done research. So there is a school of thought that we want left-handed people to do what everybody else is doing, or also a school of thought that the finger picking and strumming is more difficult, and you should do that with your more coordinated hand. When I first started taking lessons in fretted instruments on guitar and mandolin and ukulele, my teacher was left-handed and he played the instrument this way, left-handed. And he played guitar and mandolin and ukulele and banjo and all kinds of things. And he found that to be great. But then at one point he wanted to learn fiddle. And because muscle memory transfers so much among all the various string instruments, he found that it was just too much of a learning curve, and that to purchase a left-handed fiddle that he wasn't even sure he'd learn how to do well, it's over $1,000, and it wasn't a very good instrument. So at that point, he'd wished that he had just learned it the way everybody else did it, because when he became a multi-instrumentalist, he found that he couldn't make all the instruments go the other way. So there's a lot of debate on that. But if you're in a classroom setting, I would encourage you to teach everybody and to use this clock as a guide. Later, when we learn the chords, the other thing that we do is we have these chord stamps presented in a way so that people can understand them. So traditionally, a chord stamp is presented at the top of music, or it's presented where you change the chords, and it's vertical. However, your hand is kind of going more horizontally or at an angle. So we present our chord stamps so that you can see with the picture of the person's hand and with the chord stamp going somewhat sideways and up and down vertically, what the dots mean. Because people can get confused and put the finger on the wrong string. And this orientation helps them to understand vertically what's going on. Then with strumming, that's the next thing that's really important to learn. We're going to teach you to strum down with your fingers and just to keep a steady beat. That's the strum 1 right here. And that's our first strumming pattern we learned. And it's just keeping a steady beat on all downs. Now, when you want to add the upstrokes, that's like adding 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 going to encourage you to come up with your thumb. So down with your fingers, up with your thumb, down with your fingers, up with your thumb. I like this way of teaching because it has a very relaxed wrist. And it tends to give, you tend to develop speed and dexterity. It's not too tight and all of that. You're tending to use a pronation that you would use it with the door. You will often see people strumming just with a fingertip on and to and. And if that's a strumming thing that you're comfortable with, go ahead. And you'll sometimes see people doing thumb up and down. That's used in flamenco strumming a lot. If you go on with this, you can learn all kinds of different strumming, different ways to strum. But the most important thing is to keep your hand relaxed and to find one that you really like, that you're comfortable with teaching. The one we show in the book is down with the fingers and up with the thumb. The advantage to that is that later when you try to do finger picking, you're used to using fingers and thumb, and you have more coordination for that. Our strum 1 is this steady down. Strum 2 is 8 notes, 1 and 2 and 2 and 4. And strum 3 is the uneven 6/8 strum. And that works really well with row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, which is in the key of C. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. If students have trouble feeling that, I just teach them all on bounds. And when we get to the song Oats, Peas, Beans, and Barley Grow in chapter 5, oats, peas, beans, and barley grow. Oats, peas, beans. The rhythm of the song is the rhythm of the strumming pattern. And so I'll continue and then get to a song where the strumming pattern is fairly obvious and then add the upstrum at that point. So that's strumming, and if you're singing, but let's say you want to also play the melody, we'd like to show you a video that explains how to read tablature. And before we do that, before we start it, please turn in your handouts, if you have it, to Are You Sleeping in Seasons? And you can see when you're looking at the music, chapter 2, using the C major chord, that we have the traditional notation. And then underneath that is a tab staff. And this particular video is going to explain what all those lines and numbers mean, because lots of people get really confused about what they mean. They're kind of a map of the fretboard. If you're a music reader, it's pretty straightforward. And then you can move later from tab into music reading. So let's go ahead and watch a video that explains how to read tablature.
Ukulele for all and is the G string, the string that's closest to the ceiling. Play this exercise by reading the tab. The numbers on the line show the fret to stop. The A string, 2, 3, 4, begin. Try the exercise on the C, E, and G strings. The E string, 2, 3, 4, begin.
I found that when I've had students, private students, and I assign them that video, I've had children as young as 5, kindergarten, or 1st or 2nd grade, figure out how to read tab after practicing with the video. The video is about 6 minutes, takes you through all these exercises, has a mystery song at the end, and children and adults are usually able to figure it out after having practiced all that. And then if they work with it at home, they're able to start sounding out the familiar melodies that are in the book. Not every melody is familiar, but the ones that are more familiar are the ones they're able to start with. Like this one's really familiar. figure that out pretty easily with the tab. And then later you teach them the names of the notes. They know the names of the strings. You teach them how to connect it with standard music notation. And we have some 2 pages at the back of the book that present that. So now that you can play single chords, you can play down and up strums, and you can play some melodies. Oh yeah, and here's the Are You Sleeping? And you can see the tab underneath it. So the tab would, if you were singing and strumming, you would go, are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? We have the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 that shows where you would start if you were doing a round. If you're playing the melody, the tablature shows you how to play that. So you play 0, then the 2nd fret, then 0, 0, and you learn that 0 is for the open string. Then you go to the next string. Now I'm on the E string and I play 0, 1, 3, 0, 1, 3, and on the second line I play. And so I can get the whole song this way. And this song we present it in both English and French. So you read the first line of lyrics and then you go back and read the second line of lyrics. So once you can play melodies and chords on, one chord without changing, you can play with an ensemble, you can sing the melody, you can play the melody, then you're able and ready to start changing chords. So we do the first and most and easiest chord change, which is moving from the F chord to the C7. And we're going to watch a video in your handout if you have it. This is going to be on where it says chapter 5, songs that change chords using the F and the C7. So let's go ahead and watch and play along a little bit with this video.
Ukulele for All. Page 15. F to C7. Exercise 3. Move back and forth from the F chord to the C7 chord. We'll do this 12 times. 1, 2, ready, begin, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Exercise 4. Add your right hand. Strum 4 F chords, then 4 C7 chords. Repeat until it is easy to change chords. We'll do this 4 times. 1, 2, ready, begin, and F, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, C7.
So once we've learned the F to C7 chord change, we're going to stay on that chord change for 5 songs for the entire chapter. And one of the songs, you can see the first line of it, that is in this chord is I Have a Little Dreidel. So I'm going to go ahead and do this with the IPS and I will sing it, but you'll hear that there is a singer behind me who I'm not going to mute her out, because the cool thing about having the singer is that the students will realize that you have to read the top line of lyrics all the way to the bottom of the page, and then go back and do the second verse. Because if you've not had that as part of your heritage or background, you're not going to know that. You'll just read the first line of lyrics and then the second line of lyrics and then go down to the second line of music, and it won't make any sense. But if you hear the song, you'll start to figure it out really quickly. So here's I Have a Little Dreidel. Our strumming pattern is all downs. It's on a steady beat, and you just strum Fs until it tells you to change to C7. Our chord stamps are up and down because that's the way we traditionally write them, but you've already learned this chord change because you did the video that taught you how to do it. So here's I Have a Little Dreidel.
1, 3, 1, 2, 3.
I have a little dreidel, I made it out of clay, and when I don't need to do the second verse, but I wanted to show you how you read the lyrics all the way down on the first verse. And then there's 4 other songs in this chapter that really get it so that you get very comfortable with this chord change. So now, once you've learned the F to C7, you're ready to move to the C to G7 chord change. So we're going to watch a little bit of the C to G7 chord change video. You'll also notice in the videos that we always do them split screen, so you can really focus on the left and right hand. Makes it easier for the students to totally understand what they need to do. So here's something with the C to G7 chord progression. This is more difficult because the G7 chord uses 3 fingers, and this tends to become something you really have to practice. But yeah, I've always had kids get it. I wouldn't say the first lesson they get it, but they get it in time.
Ukulele for All. Page 20, C to G7 Chord Progression Lab. Step 1. Form the C chord that you know using your 3rd or ring finger on the A string behind the 3rd fret. Step 2. Hold finger 3 in place and add finger 1, your index finger, on the E string behind the 1st fret. Step 3. Hold finger 1 in place, add finger 2, your middle finger, on the C string behind the 2nd fret, and move finger 3 back a fret to form a G7 chord. Step 4. Move finger 3 down a fret and lift off fingers 1 and 2 to form a C chord again. Now, let's repeat steps 1 through 4 while listening to a music track. You can strum if you like, but the important thing is to concentrate on moving your index, middle, and ring fingers to the correct string and fret. We'll do this 4 times. 1, 2, ready, begin.
Okay, thank you. So once you've learned the chords of C, and you've learned F, and you've learned G7, you've also learned A minor, and you've also learned C7. Those are the 5 chords that we teach in this book. You're ready to go on to doing some blues improvisation. I'm going to come back to that because I'd like to talk a little bit more about strumming. So a lot of people think intuitively that you're going to strum over the sound hole. You're better off if you strum in the middle of the string. So if you strum over kind of this part right here, the end of the ukulele, for one thing, your fingers are not going to get caught. And another thing, it's going to just be easier because the string is less, well, it's not as tight. When it's close to either end, it's really tight. In the middle, it's easier. But we've taught you the 3 strumming patterns that are more beginning. And we've also started teaching you, for example, in the song Simple Gifts, we teach you down, down, up, down, down, up, down. It is a gift to be simple. But now I want to talk about some other strumming patterns that are very iconic that you can also use with the songs in Ukulele for All. And I have a slide for this because these are strumming patterns you'll hear a lot. And if you're taking students and you want to teach them some of the stuff that you might find in some of the ukulele play-alongs, or you want to try to make some of the songs in this book sound a little bit more stylistic, these strumming patterns work really well. So, for example, the song Sourwood Mountain, which is just an F major song, we present it with a down-up. Chickens crowing on Sourwood Mountain, hey-ho, ding-ding, diddle-dum day. So many chickens I can't fit all of them, hey-ho, ding-ding, diddle-dum day. And that's a kind of an old fiddle tune. Well, you could make that song slightly faster by using a boom ditty, which would be down, 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 down. And on the boom, I'm only hitting the G string, and then the down up, I'm doing all of it. So my accent is coming on the 2nd and 4th beat of each measure. So it sounds like this. And begin with a song. Chickens from nuts are worth nothing. Hey ho, ding ding diddle dum day. So many hands I can't count all of them. Hey ho, ding ding diddle dum day. My best friend, she lives in Fletcher. Hey ho, ding ding ding. It gives it more of a country feel, more of a bluegrass feel. It's just more upbeat. And it's more stylistic. That's kind of what we do in folk songs a lot. If you want to listen to some of the Johnny Cash, when he does a lot of his songs, he's often using that boom diddy strum. And so that's something that you can relate to students. Now, the other strum that is very iconic that you hear everywhere is that island strum. And it's in the song Lava, it's in the song Over the Rainbow. I use it when I do the song Hotel California. I use it on Island Style by John Cruz. I use Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison. Of course, those are not public domain songs. They're not in the book, but they're songs that you'll find people will want to play. The island strum, there's a lot of people who teach it, but I have found that having it written out by showing that there's a tie. So it's 1, 2, and then 3 is a tie. And then you come do up, down, up. So it's down, down, up. And on the tie, you're going to bring your hand down, 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 up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. So that helps if you have that written out. You can explain it more easily to students. I've actually notated songs where I put in the tab the rhythm of the strumming pattern underneath the entire song so that people can see how the strumming pattern fits with the lyrics. Another cool thing that you can teach people to do is what we call chunking. Chunking is when you hit the heel of the hand. Again, you're going to do that on beats 2 and 4. It's technically it's a hand mute, but if you with the boom diddy would be chickens, brown nuts are with now. Hey ho, ding ding diddle dum day. So many hands I can't count all of them. Hey ho, ding ding diddle dum day. So that's another thing is to try that. That takes some practice. You're going to want to put your chunks on beat 2 and 4. And the way I do it is I just make sure that when I do my down strum, I'm hitting the heel of my hand. A song that works if you want to practice this iconic blues, this iconic island strum, it tends to work really well with the song Shalom Kafami, which is in A minor and does not change chords. So that's a great song to practice it on because then you're not being worried about all that other stuff. So I'll just do this one without the IPS, but this is, so the pattern that we suggest, of course, is all downs, but it's going to just sound more modern if you go Shalom Kavarim, Shalom Kavarim, Shalom, Shalom, Leitrao, Leitrao, Shalom, 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 oh my friend, Shalom, oh my friend, Shalom, Shalom, till we meet again, till we meet again, Shalom, Shalom. And that song's very beautiful as Around Us Well, and it works really well with that island strum. And I'm going to show you how it works with the Over the Blues progression too. So I'm going to pull that one up because it's a little easier to play the blues if you actually hear the blues progression. So here I am on the IPS pulling up the blues. I'm going to do the island strum.
3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So that gives you the idea of how the blues will work as a really nice backing track for learning that harder strumming pattern. But the other thing I wanted to show you is that once you start to move past the 3rd fret, it's like, okay, I put first finger in the 1st fret, second finger in the 2nd fret, 3rd finger in the 3rd fret, 4th finger in the 4th fret. What do I do with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? What do I do? Well, that's why we have the red dots, is we're showing you that in fret 3, you're going to put your 1st finger. In fret 5, you're going to put your 3rd finger. And in fret 6, you're going to put your 4th finger so that you can play this 2-string blues scale up the neck, and the fingerings are showing you how to do that. So let me show you how that works, the 2-string blues scale. And I'm going to pull that up and play it for you. I will play it as written, and on the repeat, I'll do an improvisation. We encourage people to encourage our students to improvise with these backing tracks. Once the students have learned this 2-string blues scale, then you can tell them pick any note that you want within that scale, and you can have a group improvisational experience, and they feel confident because nobody's honing in on what they're doing. They can do what they want, but it still sounds good.
1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now I'm going to make something up. So you could hear I wasn't doing what the person on the recording was doing, and it still worked. And that's what's cool about these backing tracks, is they work really well. So we do encourage, that's one of the reasons it's a great idea to get the teacher edition, because in the teacher edition, there's lots of added exercises that you can do. So 2 of the blues, there's in the blues chapter, which is chapter 7, 2 of the songs are originals, Ukulele Blues and Lonely Blues. And that's just because we couldn't find super easy public domain blues songs. Most of them were harder. We were played with St. Louis Blues, beautiful, wonderful song, but it was just too difficult. And we have Beale Street Blues in here as well, which is a cool song. But what's neat is students can actually start to write their own blues tunes. Because if you say, you know, this was one that was written by your teacher, written by a teacher, and here's an opportunity, why don't you tell me something that you're kind of upset about or sad about, something that you want to just kind of vent about, and we could put it into a song. And so I saw this cute little video where Conan was teaching Chicago first graders about the blues. And he had these first graders that were talking about, one boy was complaining how every time he went out to recess, kids were throwing balls and they were hitting him on the head. It was adorable. And other kids were talking about, you know, their teddy bears or a cat. And then they came out later and they had all these little instruments, and Conan created a blues song based on what the kids had come up with. Because the feelings that we have, it doesn't matter if you're young, you're old, we all have feelings. And by creating our own songs to deal with our feelings, we feel a lot better. And then you can use the blues backing track, and you can use the blues improvisation in the middle to kind of express what's going on. And students can work in groups. It's a wonderful project. We have all kinds of ideas on how to do that. And that's all presented in the teacher's manual. Finally, when you get, so we've learned about those other iconic strumming patterns. Finally, the other pattern that you can do a lot is down, down, up, down. This is in 3/4 time. And we call this the Waltz Drum. And this works beautifully in the song Amazing Grace, which is the last song in the book. So I can show you a little bit of that. Now let me get in the key to see. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. So that's another strumming pattern we use. And let's see. Yeah, so the UFA, once you've learned the blues with the C, F, and G7, and you've learned the blues scale that goes up the neck, then we move into a lot of 3-chord songs. And students really love these songs. So for example, I think it's chapter 8, when we get to the 3-chord songs, One of the songs in there is Jingle Bells. And I was teaching a little girl who was maybe 6 weeks. It was private lessons. It was during the time of COVID. So I was teaching online with Zoom. She was in her house, 20 miles from here, and I was at home. And she had her back to her door in her bedroom. And she was going, Jingle Bells, jingle. And she had a sweet little voice. And her dad was just so thrilled that only 6 or 7 weeks into her lessons, she was already doing Jingle Bells, and it was late November. So it was about the time you would want to learn that song. So all of a sudden I see the door open and he sneaks in with his cell phone and he videotapes her on the phone to send to the family that she's learned Jingle Bells. And the kids really love that. They love that they can play real songs pretty soon along. They also, there's other tunes in that chapter. There's Aloha Oi, which is the Hawaiian song. There's I've been working on the rail, and Oh, When the Saints Go Marching In. A lot of good songs in that chapter. So it's really fun. I wanted to just talk before I kind of finish up a little bit about the different sizes of ukuleles and about using a strap, because that's something that's come up. What I have here is a tenor ukulele, and it has a low G tuning. That means the G string is low in pitch. And I use the strap. It really helps me for when I do movement up the neck. I have in my house here, I also have this is a concert ukulele. You can see it's a little bit smaller than the tenor. I'm going to set the tenor down and also pick up my soprano ukulele, which is the smallest size. I'm going to put the concert down and show you the other kind of strap that you can use. The tenor ukulele, I had them put a button on the end. You can go to a luthier. If you don't have a button on your ukulele and have a button put there, the other part of the strap is tied behind the nut so it doesn't stop the strings. If you don't want to put a button on, or you're just concerned about damaging the ukulele, these kinds of straps work. Jake Shimabukuro, who's one of the greatest ukulele artists in the world, this is the kind of strap he uses. It's not hands-free, but it does make it so that you can do all that kind of stuff and do a lot of cool things with your right hand. This is a soprano. It has a high G tuning. Ukulele for All, it works with sopranos, tenors, and concert-sized ukuleles, any ukulele that tunes to G, C, E, A. And we've written all our melodies on the C, E, and A strings so that it works for both high G and low G tuning. Later, when you get further along, that's one of the reasons people have more than one ukulele. There's certain kinds of music that works better with high G and other kind of music that works better with low G. Mainly, it's a matter of personal preference. As far as the size of ukulele, the sopranos work really well for young children because they're small. Most adults prefer the tenor or concert because there's room for their fingers in the frets. I'm okay with any size, partly probably because I taught violin my entire career, so I'm used to moving my fingers real tight and moving them further apart. But if you have somebody who has sort of arthritic hands, you would probably want them to try different sizes to find which size was most comfortable for them. I would suggest using a strap because it does tend to keep the ukulele so that the headstock is towards your shoulder, and it just tends to make it easier to play. I just wanted to point out a few more of the songs in the book. Ari Rang from Korea is in our book, and it's in Korean. We have 2 songs in Spanish, De Colores and Silito Lindo. We also have, as I said, Aloha Oi from Hawaii. I've been working on the railroad. And then we have Shalom Chaverim, the Hebrew song. So we have songs from all over the world. We have folk music, and we have a lot of songs in the book. It's a fun book to work through and and one other thing is we do teach some finger picking of a melody, and that's later in the book. And we teach that on Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And that's really beautiful if you can get an ensemble going where some people are strumming. Some people are finger picking the accompaniment and some people are finger picking the melody. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. If you can get people to stay together, it's absolutely beautiful. There's a lot more features in the teacher's manual, and there is a lesson for every single song in the book with the IPS. And the IPS features that split screen, so you can really see what is going on with the hands. It has the music underneath each song, so you can really see where you are in the music. And you can choose to play the audio with the voice or without it. And the last thing I'll say about the IPS that's really cool is that when you you have an accompaniment and you're playing it through your phone or through your computer or through your tablet, because it's available always, you can choose to slow down the accompaniment and you can choose to speed it up. There's 3 tempos given for every song. So you can, when you're practicing it, you can choose a tempo that will work for you or for your students. So at that point, I've kind of finished with what I have to say. If there's any questions, I'm happy to address them. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Jenny. This has been such a wonderful presentation. I love the diversity of the music in the books. I think that's so cool. I love that part of it. If you have any questions at this point, please feel free to post any questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Either is fine. I'm going to copy and paste our discount code and our link to our website where you can find the Ukulele for All books. Again, this UFA 2022 code is for 30% off at our website for Jenny's books. I do have one question that I think would be fun to go through. Do you have any other tips for utilizing your books in the classroom, even if there are students with different levels of knowledge or interest?
Yeah, that's a good one. Right before COVID hit, I was doing ukulele club at my school. We had 25 students, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. My 3rd graders were very good at this. My 5th graders, many of them were in band and orchestra, and they wanted to play tab. And so we would create ensembles. So I would say, okay, 5th graders, we're going to do Sourwood Mountain. I would like you guys to play the melody. 3rd graders, I'd like you guys to play the chords. We're going to all sing it through. Then the second time through, you choose a part, whichever one is going to be for you. And then on the repeat, we'll sing it out. And so you can very much, the whole point of presenting so much at the beginning on simple songs is that you can encourage your more advanced students or your students who have more background to do something more complex with the song. And then your kids that are so when I had disabled students, because I had kids where this was all they could do, we just stayed. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about a ukulele is GCEA is an A-7 chord or a C6 chord. And anything in the key of C will sound good with all open strings. And that's what they did, is they sang and strummed open strings. So it really was something you could do many, many levels. You just try to make sure everybody's together, but the IPS recordings helped that a lot. Then finally, when I had not club, but when it was a class and we needed to pass various songs, we had sticker charts. Mm-hmm. And I would divide the class, let's say there are 24 kids. I had 6 groups of 4 because no one wanted to sing by themselves. And so I would say, in order to pass this song, I need to hear the song strummed, and you either have to speak the lyrics or sing the lyrics, or you can elect one person in your group to play the melody and the rest of you strum the chords. But I need to be able to recognize the song. And if they could do that, then they passed it and their group got a sticker.
Wow, that's great. I love that. The motivation of a sticker.
It worked for me.
It totally does. We do have one question in the Q&A asking about straps. What do you do if your ukulele doesn't have a button for the strap?
I would, for a teacher, I like hands-free because, well, I like hands-free. If you don't want to do, you can get a button put in. They cost about $10 at a luthier. Otherwise, buy one of these. And you can get them online. They're ukulele straps, and they hook on the sound hole. And this would be useful for students. But for teachers, it's going to be awfully hard for you if you need to actually touch people's hands and try to adjust them. And you're going to want to be able to have hands free because you're going to want to turn music or point to where people are. You don't want to have to always have a hand on an instrument sometimes.
Totally. And then we have a couple questions in the chat. One is, how many class times a week do you see your students?
Well, when I was teaching ukulele club, I saw them once a week for 45 minutes after school. When I was teaching in the junior high, I saw them every day, so they progressed really quickly. When I was teaching the elementary, it was twice a week for 30 minutes.
All right, that's great. And then what about individual lessons? Because I know you do that as well.
When I do individual lessons, I just do 30 minutes every week.
Okay. That's
And
great.
sometimes I do privates, and sometimes I do partner lessons. And I even have partner lessons where I have 2 older women, one's in Colorado right now, and the other one's in Florida. And we all play on Zoom.
That's great. Zoom has worked wonders. The next question, do you have any suggestions for a good classroom ukulele or tips for ukulele in the classroom? I'm going to go with that.
Well, we used diamond heads, and they held up pretty well. We got them through our vendor who brought our string, our violins, and we got them for like $35 a piece. And they have been there about 10 years, and most of them are still working. Some people like to use some of the callas. I would go to whoever in your school does like the violins, or the band director, ask them which music store they use, get in touch with the music store, get a discount for buying a bunch of them. If money is an issue, get your PTO to help you out. I would try to do sopranos mainly. Sometimes the issues with tuning them, but I got to the point where I could tune a class of ukuleles in about 4 or 5, between 3 and 5 minutes. I could tune the whole class.
I can't even tune mine that quickly.
Well, I would just tune one of them, then, and I'd walk around and go, then I go to the next one.
Yeah.
I made a rule in the classroom, but there was another rule. You may not touch the tuning pegs. You may not touch the tuning pegs. That is not something you're allowed to do, because you'll get some Weisenheimer who thinks it's really funny to tune it as tight as it will go, and actually can hurt the instrument such that the neck starts to come off the ukulele, that kind of thing. You don't want that. And some kids, you just think it's really funny to, and then the other thing we do at our schools, is you have little, right now with COVID, it's a little more difficult because you don't want kids we're loosening our restrictions, but for a while you didn't really want 10 different kids sharing one instrument in a day.
Yeah.
That's something we were doing, but people were assigned specific instruments. So if we're sitting in square number 1, you got ukulele number 1, and then if the sub came back and the next day you were there and ukulele 1 was really out of tune after such and such class, you knew which kid you would probably want to be talking to about it.
Yeah, which one to talk to.
And you don't embarrass them, but you're like, okay, were you touching the tuning pegs? And then I had another thing I always did, because kids can't keep from doing this, and we'd have a rest position. You put it down on your lap or down in front of you, and then they'll start drumming on it. And then if that becomes an issue, just take it away. Or sometimes when I've had chairs, it depends whether you use chairs or not, because kids really have trouble not noodling. Even in my ukulele club, there's a sign that says no noodling, and everybody does, and we're adults.
Yeah.
I'll just say, okay, we have to put the ukuleles under the chairs, and I'll tell you when you can take it out again.
That's fair. They're kind of irresistible to play with, so.
Yeah, really.
We also have a question. Have you run your ukulele club with high schoolers?
No, I haven't, but I have colleagues who have. I have a colleague at Niles North and Niles West. A lot of times the orchestra director tends to be the class guitar person, the class ukulele person.
Mm-hmm.
And both of my colleagues in the district in which I teach, to where my students go to high school, use ukulele for all in the high school. And they've had good luck with it.
Oh, that's great. Another question, do you have any resources for baritone ukulele?
No. That would be something we can come up with later, but no, we don't. There are books for baritone ukulele. Another thing you can do, if you explain, is you can get a capo, and you can capo the 5th fret, and then a baritone ukulele is tuned like a tenor.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that is the relationship between a guitar and a ukulele, and between a baritone ukulele and a GCA ukulele. It's a 5th fret capo, so you can do that.
All right, that sounds great. That is currently all of the questions that we have live. If anybody else has any questions they want to get in really quick, feel free to. But thank you for a wonderful presentation, a wonderful session, Jenny. It's been so wonderful to have you. Thank you to everybody who is with us tonight, watching and following along. Again, if you have not requested your complimentary booklet, please send us an email at email@chos with your preferred shipping information, and we will get you a booklet. If anybody you know wanted to come to this presentation and couldn't tonight, we are doing it again tomorrow night, an hour later. And if you want to use that discount code, I'm putting it into the chat right now. And it's going to be UFA22, used directly at chos.com for anything in your cart that is by Jenny Peters. All right. Have a lovely evening, everybody. It was wonderful having you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.